Thornhill, sexuality educator, and this is You Ask, I Answer, where I answer your questions about sex and sexuality. Today's question comes via my website, and this reader asks, I want to talk to my son about sex openly and honestly. I think it's important to teach him the right names of body parts and where babies come from and all of that. But I'm worried my son will tell his friends what we've talked about, and then those kids will tell their parents, and then the parents will get mad and come to me for starting this whole thing. So what do I do? Over the years, I've had to deal with this exact situation a few times myself, which probably isn't that surprising given my line of work. And our children's friends and their families, they're part of our community. So those other parents and caregivers, oftentimes they're our peers, they may even be our friends, but generally speaking, they're people we want to get along with, so it can be awkward and embarrassing when we feel like something we've done has upset them. I know for me, there have definitely been situations where I felt really uncomfortable because suddenly I feel like everyone's looking at me and being like, oh, well, there's that sex-talking mom disrupting the situation. And it's something that I used to really struggle with, but over the years, I've come up with some strategies that have worked well. So here are my tips for dealing with a situation where your kid has said something about sex to another kid, and then that other kid's family gets mad at you. When I talk about my son on the internet, I call him the Bean. I give him that nickname to help protect his anonymity. So I'm going to give your son a vegetable-themed nickname just for the purposes of talking about him in this video. So let's call your son Carrots. If you have a conflict with another parent, try to remember why you're doing what you're doing, why you've chosen to be open and honest with Carrots about sexuality. First of all, there are a lot of benefits. One of them being that Carrots is going to grow up with a good understanding of his body. He's going to have lots of information about relationships and how all of those things work, which are really important. Second of all, because you're starting these conversations when Carrots is young, that means that as he's growing up, he's going to know that he can ask you questions, that he can come to you when he has problems, and that you're going to be available to talk about those things with him. So even though having that conflict with the parent is uncomfortable in the short term, don't forget about all the great long-term benefits for your son. Ask the other parent what your child has said that upset them so much. So for example, if they say, well, Carrots told my kid that he had a penis, then you can respond with something like, oh, yeah, Carrots has been really curious about bodies lately. He's been asking a lot of questions. And in our house, we feel it's really important for our kids to know the names of all of their body parts. Sometimes when that parent has a context for how the conversation happened and they know that the information is coming from you, it can actually help put them at ease. For other families, that response will not put them at ease at all. There are families who don't feel that they should talk about sex, who don't want to talk about sex with their children when they're younger, and they aren't comfortable having their children talk about sex or sexuality in mixed company. Now, regardless of how you or I may feel about that, other families do have a right to make those choices within their family. But we have a right to make certain choices in our family. So if you're dealing with a parent who's just really upset and they just really don't want their children hearing or talking about anything to do with sexuality at all, that's the point at which you can say, this is the choice that we've made for our family and we feel that it's important, but I understand that you're upset and I will let Carrots know that you don't want your kid talking about these things at school or with their friends. The next step is to follow up with your child. Explain that not all families are comfortable talking about penises. Your friend's family don't want him using that word, so we're not going to say it to him anymore. Now, after that, your child may want to know, well, why aren't they comfortable talking about penises? And that's when you can explain that different families have different ideas about what's private, and that in your friend's family, penis is a private word, so we're going to respect that, and we're not going to say that word to him anymore. Now, depending on how compliant your child is or not, this is something that you may have to reiterate more than once. Finally, be prepared to stand up for yourself and be prepared to stand up for your child. You aren't doing anything wrong and your child is not a bad person. It's really normal for kids to talk to each other and to share information. And it's also very normal for our kids to pick things up from each other that we as their grown-ups may not always love and may not be prepared for. That's just part of being in a community. Thank you for your question. I hope this advice was helpful. If you have a question for me, I love hearing from you. You can either leave me a comment down below, you can find me over at Twitter at Nadine Thornhill, or you can hit me up on my website, nadinethornhill.com/contact. Anyway, that's all for this episode. I hope you have a great day and I will see you really soon. Bye! Are you trying to explain gender identity to your child? Well, in my last video, I review a great book that helps you do just that. And while you're here, why not click on that awesome subscribe button to subscribe to my channel and you won't miss a single video. It's easy and it's fun if you like clicking on buttons and stuff.